Hi there. Today I'm going to talk about internal fit holsters, often known as summer specials, through the lens of my own experience with the type. Now, I'd used different pistols and different holsters since I first started in 1975. By 1978, I was using for competition, IPSC competition, a holster called a Hackathon Special, which was made by the renowned American holster maker Milt Sparks, and it was an appendix position holster, and I had a dedicated belt for it. Now, it was supposed to be a dual purpose. You could use it for competition and also for everyday carriage. It was actually a little bit bulky for that. So for a while, before I had the Hackathon, I'd been using for covert carriage a holster from Paul Evers, who had a company called, at the time, Holsters Unlimited, later Holsters International, based in Liverpool, and I knew Paul quite well. And he made me this holster, which was called a Gem, and it was also appendix carry. It was a really, really good holster. It was very thin leather, so concealed very well, but it was also very sturdy leather. He really was a master of holster making. So in 1978, I attended Jeff Cooper's API 250 course down at Bisley, and I'd already met the Colonel a couple of times previously, and he gave us a lot of information about holsters and holster designs and so on. And one of the people he talked about a lot was Bruce Nelson, and I was well aware of Bruce's summer special design through the Milt Sparks catalogue, for example. So we'll really take up the story with Bruce Nelson and the summer special, because prior to Bruce's design, these type of internal fit suede leather clip-on holsters were dreadful, and they were shunned by serious shooters. The problems were numerous. Firstly, they were attached to the belt by a spring clip, which usually failed. Now, without naming names, I once saw a holster designer demonstrate his version of this with the spring clip, and he said this one works, and it stays put, and he drew the pistol and the holster came with it. So the design really isn't one that can be modified to work very well with the spring clip. And if by chance the holster stayed on the belt, there would often be a big ball of suede on the front sight, because the front, we were all by this time using pistols with decent sights on, with a prominent front sight. It would gouge the leather. And finally, reholstering was tricky, because after you drew the pistol, the belt kept the suede holster flat, and it was almost impossible to reholster. And now this is important in real life activities where you may have to reholster quickly. For example, in VIP protection embussing, after a contact or an incident where you've got weapons in hands, you don't want to be diving into a vehicle with a pistol in your hand. You need to reholster. Has to be eyes off reholstering, because you're scanning for threats. So the spring clip suede holsters didn't allow this. So Bruce Nelson resurrected the design. He was a California state narcotics agent, and he had actually experienced the dismay of drawing his Colt Commander on a raid only to have the clip-on holster come free, leaving him pointing a suede covered pistol at the suspect. Bruce decided to completely redesign the type. Firstly, he used a leather loop with a snap fastener to secure the holster to the belt. There was no way this holster would pull free on the draw, and later it was changed to a one-way snap, which was even more secure. And because, as we said earlier, with that high visibility sights, it was important to avoid the front sight gouging. So sight tracks were introduced, which were strips of leather at the front of the holster internally, which formed a channel for the front sight to be guided in and kept free of the holster material. Later on, other manufacturers took the idea, and some of them produced a plastic track, a dedicated track, which they put into the holster, or they would use moulding, wet mould the leather to form a channel. And then finally, the mouth of the holster was reinforced with added leather, a band of added leather plus an internal spring steel liner, which kept the holster open, so you can reholster eyes off one-handed. He called the design the Summer Special and manufactured it under license by Milt Sparks. The other thing about it was what's we call suede, but in the trade it's called rough out leather, where the smooth parts inside and the rough parts outside. The advantage of this, according to people who make those type of holsters, is that you have the rough outer side, which helps to secure the holster within the pants by friction, and then internally the leather smooth, which allows an easy draw. So it's a good idea. After retiring from law enforcement, Bruce Nelson set up a private range in the mountains near Tucson, and a steady stream of trainees from the nearby special training facility at Marana, which was a federal law enforcement training satellite facility, made the pilgrimage up the mountain to order custom leather from the man himself. Now, Marcus Wynn, when he was training at Marana and then later an instructor, would take guys up to visit Bruce Nelson, and they would order a custom holster for themselves. And Marcus did this, and he also had Bruce make him a custom sheath for a tanto. It was a horizontal sheath to carry a tanto, which Marcus, being a really expert knife enthusiast, he carried a tanto on the aircraft. When I was at Marana in 91, Marcus tried to phone Bruce to set up a meeting, but he was away at the time. And during the same trip, I attended the ILFE conference in just outside Phoenix, and Bruce was one of the contributors. He gave a presentation on holsters, so I signed up for it. I was really enthusiastic. However, I got the schedule wrong and I missed it. So to my regret, I never met Bruce Nelson. Bruce was also one of the first instructors at Gunsight, and as I mentioned earlier, the Colonel really was a booster of Bruce's work, not only as a holster maker but as a firearms instructor. So the advantages of the Summer Special: a holster needs to blend security, concealment, accessibility and protection into the optimum package, and in my opinion that's what the Summer Special does. This internal fit holster, also known as an ISP inside the pants or an IWB inside the waistband, actually, in my opinion, does this better than any other. Most such holsters are designed to be placed over the master side kidney, which there is a natural hollow there, and it's usually called kidney carry or FBI carry, that position there. However, Bruce Nelson himself preferred the appendix position, so he was the probably the primary proponent of what's now called AIWB, appendix internal inside the waistband, which is very popular now, and that's what he carried when he was undercover in the Narcotics Bureau. The kidney carry position does allow very discreet carriage. The cover garment drapes naturally over that hollow, and it affords a real measure of discretion, and also the fact that it's inside the belt, it's tight to the body, unlike holsters which are on the belt, which obviously protrude a little bit more. So you're getting the maximum really, while still being able to access the weapon quickly. Now, some people find the internal fit holster uncomfortable, and in truth I avoided the design for quite a while for this reason. However, a couple of months after training with the Colonel, in early 79, I'd trained with him in the summer of 78. Early 79, there was the UK PSA, United Kingdom Practical Shooting Association, held an instructor course down at Bisley for people to try to become certified instructors. And a group of us from Liverpool made our way down. Now, this was through one of the worst winters in memory. So much so that we were advised by the police not to go any further, even on the motorway. However, we took the decision, we carry on, snail's pace, many hours. We finally made it to Bisley. I would say it was terrible weather, but while there I met a gent called Bruce Stevens, and I was aware of him from adverts in some of the guns magazines or pictures of his product, which was a copy of the Summer Special. And Bruce Stevens was a competitor, so he knew what he was doing, and having met him, I thought, well, here's a chance to try out something new. And I said, have you got any of your holsters with you? And he didn't. But he said he offered to sell me the one that he was actually using himself, his own personal holster. So I thought, well, it's bound to be one of the best things he's ever made. So I bought it off him. It was for the full-size 1911. And during the journey back, many hours in the minibus, I got used to the feeling of something inside the belt, and it soon became very, very comfortable and very normal, and it's become my favourite type of covert carriage holster ever since. I also, on the advice of Colonel Cooper, gone to a Star PD 45 as an alternative to the full-size 1911, and I wanted a summer special for that, and I ordered one from Milt Sparks. Now, I'd already dealt with Milt for the hack special and also for a shoulder holster which was designed by Colonel Cooper. So I was aware of the range of holsters that he made, and he did make them for the Star PD. So I ordered one, and it was excellent, and that was really discreet. Just to digress, for people who are only used to ordering stuff online in the internet age, I'll just mention what it was like back then to order a holster or any other item from the United States. First of all, you had to write to the manufacturer. Now, you would know the price from the catalogue, but you needed to know the postage to add on. So you'd write to him, which took a minimum of 5 days to get there. He would then write back and tell you how much to send. You then went to the American Express shop in the city centre, and you bought a money order which required filling in a lot of information, and then you sent the money order again through the mail in a letter back to America and then waited eagerly for your goods. In many cases, the post office wouldn't deliver them because if there was duty to be collected, if the revenue decided that you had to pay extra on top of it, you had to go to the sorting office, which was only open at inconvenient times, and pay the duty, pay the fee that the post office added on for taking the duty, and then there was VAT on top of the whole thing. So, enormous rip-off. But that's what it was like back then. And I must say, obviously things are a delight now to order online. So, there were other British holster makers coming into the scene, and there was a chap called Don Price who had a company which started up called Price Western Leather, and I'd met him at one of the gun shows, and he asked if I would design some holsters for him, and I had my ideal summer special in mind, and I asked him to make me one, and it became a catalogue item for him. And in addition to the classic features, what I did was I added a second belt loop, which then gave you the ability to straddle one of the trouser loops, which then stopped the holster from any chance of it moving along the belt under any kind of activity. And it also added stability. There was never going to be any tilting of the holster. So the whole thing about accessing a weapon for a draw is it's got to be consistent. It's always got to be the same way, so you don't want the angle to change. And the other thing was to build up on the body side of the holster a flap to take the material higher, and this was a shield which stopped the hammer, because we were still using things like 1911s and Star PDs, which had a cocked hammer, from tangling in your clothing or gouging your body. And this shield also provided a thumb shelf, so with your natural gripping action as you acquire the pistol, the thumb would reach the top of the shield and you could lever the weapon out of the holster, making the extraction a little bit easier. So I thought that was a good idea. Price Western did really excellent work, and they were quite inexpensive as well. And I did other designs for them over the years. They changed the name now just to PWL, but they're still going. By the way, the manufacturers I mentioned, I will put contact details below. There was another United Kingdom company called Horseshoe Leather, which was run by a chap called Andy Aratunian. And I actually, to be quite honest, the designs he was offering in adverts and that we saw for competition holsters mainly, they were made out of a leather which was kind of a butter yellow, and I just didn't like it. That was it. It was just an aesthetic thing. However, he branched out and he was making his version of things like the Summer Special, and I'd already ordered. He had a centre of the back design, which I'd used, and I tried it for quite a while, and I asked him to make me his version of the Summer Special for a Heckler P7. I think the reason being the very few other makers were offering for the P7. Anyway, he did it, and it's a masterful design. He's got the split loop and the thumb shield, everything really, really well made. And actually it's still in the cabinet in the other room with some memorabilia, and I've got a lot of fondness for that holster, and in my opinion it's the best holster for the P7, and certainly the best internal fit holster for the P7. In the early 1990s in the United States, a young designer called Gary Brommerland emerged, and a couple of writers highlighted his work, including Dave Spalding, who I knew very well. Unfortunately, after only about a year, Gary gave up the business and moved away. He later came back and resumed business, but in the interim, it was difficult to get his work. But Dave Spalding very, very kindly sent me one of the Brommerland holsters, and it really is a work of art. And it's for the P7, and as you see in the picture, it is so beautiful. I've kept it. I had two. I had one for, I think, a Browning, and I gave that away. I can't remember who to, but it was to somebody who really deserved it. It was a beautiful piece of leather work. Masayub, who's obviously noted for his firearms training and writing, turned his hand to holster design with two unique creations. His LFI Special, produced by Ted Blocker, did away with the conventional belt loop, and instead he had a Velcro tab which mated to a Velcro liner on the belt. And this meant you could position it anywhere, or you could adjust the angle as you wanted. And Mas very, very kindly sent me one of these holsters, and it worked very, very well. It's a good design. And, you know, because there was no loops, you could just take it off the belt if you needed to. His second design was called the rear guard, and it looks a little bit strange, but it worked. And the leather work was really, really top notch, and it was made by a chap called Mitch Rosen. And I was given one of those as well, and it's a really good design. And Mitch Rosen's still active, and he also makes holsters out of exotic materials, which are again works of art. Then at an ILFE conference, I met Greg Kramer, and he was a holster maker from Washington State who specialized in using horsehide. Now, horsehide is a completely different prospect to cowhide leather. It's tough, it's very durable, and it molds very, very well. It's more expensive, but it's really the material. And Greg converted me to horsehide. One of the things is Greg doesn't use snaps, the one-way snaps that are popular on both internal fit and on the belt holsters and other bits of ancillary equipment. His reason being is that he makes his holsters to last. Horsehide being very, very durable, you only ever need to buy one. However, snaps can fail, and when they fail, the holster is useless. It's a bit like zips. I've got a couple of really, really good coats, which the only problem is the zips have broken. You know, if they use military grade zips on everything, they'd last forever. However, I guess it's the expense, or they want you to buy another coat. But what Greg uses on the holsters are Chicago screws, so they're not going to break, but if you lose one, you just get another screw. And so all the holsters from Greg are going to last you. He also makes belts. The belt is the interface between the holster and the body, and you really, really need a decent belt. And you know, back in the day, a lot of us were using 1 3/4 belts. It was quite fashionable. People wearing jeans with big buckles and so on. But then tastes change, and we now usually use 1.5, sometimes even 1 1/4 inch belts. And particularly if you're wearing dress, you know, suits and so on, you don't want a big outrageous cowboy type of belt. So a decent belt is essential, and the horsehide belts, again, like the holsters, are absolutely state of the art. And one of the things that Greg Kramer offers is a shark skin covered belt, which really is indestructible. And this is the one that's favoured particularly by some tier 1 units over in the United States for when they're doing low visibility operations. I still wear my Kramer belts regularly. They're the best thing out there. One holster which I obtained and I had high hopes for was the Executive Special from Milt Sparks, and I ordered it for the SIG 228, and I was going on a course training with military close protection unit, and I thought this is going to be ideal, and this is it. As you can see, it's leather. It's not rough out leather, it's normal leather. It's got the twin loops, the moulding, and there's a lot of additional leather around the skirting here, which again helps to stabilize it. A problem was I didn't break it in, and I found reholstering really difficult. And I mentioned it to Marcus actually, and he said, "Yep, it's designed for comfort. It's designed to wear for long times, and it sacrifices a little bit of the rigidity for comfort." And bearing that in mind, it works well. Actually, it having broken it in, there's no problem. It's a really excellent design, and it's become very, very popular. But just on that occasion, it didn't work for me particularly. Future trends are away from leather or horsehide even into Kydex, plastic holsters. When these first appeared, the weakness was the attachment to the belt, but the problem's been long solved. The first one I ever used was a Blade Tech holster, and it worked well. And then a good friend of mine who had been a member of a government protection team for many years, very highly trained, very, very knowledgeable about pistols and so on, here in the UK, started making Kydex holsters on rather small scale, but kind of within the community. And he specialised in an on the belt holster, but he made me an internal fit holster, and he started offering them as well. And this is it. You see the loop works very, very well. It's very strong, and there are adjustment screws here which you can alter the amount of tension, and for the draw. So for the working bodyguard, particularly in suited and booted, the internal fit holster will allow covert carriage of the handgun with total discretion until it's needed. However, working with VIPs who indulge in a range of activities, sporting, leisure, workplace, etc., one holster type may not cover all eventualities. So a future video we will discuss specific to task holster applications. So until then, I'll see you next time.